Wait, please.
All righty. Hello, everybody. It is a beautiful Monday. I keep thinking it's morning because I'm still drinking coffee. However, it is 7:05 p.m. and it is time to start our GSA meeting. So welcome, everybody. Unfortunately, tonight, Samet, our secretary, is sick. So send him well wishes. But Emily, our VP of Student Government Affairs, was nice enough to step in and be our acting secretary for tonight. So Emily, can you please call the roll for us?
I can, and I apologize in advance if I forget anyone. I'm going off of a list, so if you do not hear your department's name called, please just say here in the chat and the name of your department. All right, perfect. So let's start off. Masters of Accounting.
Here.
Adult Workforce and Continuing Professional Education. Animal Science.
Here.
Biological and Agricultural Engineering. Biology.
Here.
Great. Biomath.
Here.
Biomedical Engineering.
Here.
MBA.
Here.
Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering.
Here.
Chemistry.
Here.
Civil Engineering.
Here.
Communication.
Here.
Communication, Rhetoric, and Digital Media.
Here.
Computer Science and Computer Science Engineering.
Here.
Crop and Soil Sciences.
Here.
Economics. Electrical and Computer Engineering.
Here.
English.
Here.
Entomology.
Here.
Forest Biomaterials.
Here.
Forestry and Environmental Resources.
Here.
Genetics.
Here.
Genomic Sciences.
Here.
Higher Education. History.
Here.
Horticultural Science.
Here.
Industrial and Systems Engineering.
Here.
Masters of International Studies.
Here.
Marine, Earth, and Atmospheric Sciences.
Here.
Material Sciences and Engineering. Mathematics.
Here.
Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering. Microbiology. Operations Research Engineering.
Here.
Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management.
Here.
Physics.
Here.
Physiology.
Here.
Plant Biology.
Here.
Plant Pathology.
Here.
Poultry Science. Psychology.
Here.
Public Administration. Sociology.
Here.
Statistics. Teacher Education and Learning Sciences. Technical Communication.
Here.
Textiles. College of Engineering, TTM.
Here.
Toxicology. College of Vet Med.
Here.
And Minority Engineering.
Here.
Perfect. We are all set.
I think this is an older list. This might be from the 2019-2020 folder. Were there any GSAs that weren't called?
BGSA is here, Black Graduate Student Association.
Great, thank you.
PhD in
And toxicology is here.
Got it. Thank you.
PhD in design.
Thank you.
An adult workforce and continuing professional education.
Great. Thank you.
All right, and for anything else, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm sure Emily will scroll through and grab that. All right, so to kick off tonight, we have a very exciting guest, Elizabeth James. Beth, are you here?
I am, although I'm really nervous that you called me exciting. I feel like now I have to live up to this reputation.
Oh, trust me, you certainly do. So Beth here is our resident expert on all things international student related. She's being humble. She absolutely is. And she is going to be an excellent resource tonight to answer any questions that we may have about international students, maybe some of the stuff surrounding the new proposed rule change, and basically anything else. Lord knows Beth here has answered more than one of my questions about international students and what it's like. So Beth, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more, or?
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really pleased that you all are interested in the issues that are affecting international students. I know many international students are members of this organization, so I'm really happy to spend some time to talk to students about this issue. You know, the last 4 years have been an interesting shift in immigration policy. And, you know, a lot of the rhetoric has been centered around illegal immigration, but quietly, until recently quietly, there have been all sorts of regulations and restrictions coming out affecting legal immigration. And that affects a lot of highly skilled people, a lot of people who would get a graduate degree in the United States and then want to stay in the United States to work and contribute to our society. So it's been an interesting 4 years. And I've been in this field for a long time. I was a DSO when 9/11 happened. And so, you know, there was definitely a shift in that time period in terms of, like, that was when SEVIS came along, which is this electronic tracking database for international students and scholars. But, you know, then there was like a very specific reason why this was necessary, and we all went along with it. And there's just not a lot of reasons that this proposed rule is necessary. So like I mentioned, the SEVIS system tracks all sorts of data on international students. They are the most tracked immigrant population in the United States, non-immigrant population in the United States. And so, you know, down to their addresses being reported, any program extension, any change in funding, any employment authorization, all of those things are tracked, and including the address of those of that. And you know, so the fact that this proposed rule, if you're not familiar, the proposed rule starts by saying that they don't have enough control over this population, that they don't know what this population is doing, which is problematic statement of fact, because that's, if they were using the data that they're given, then they would be able to track this population better and look for the outliers that they are concerned about. There is some, you know, very small amount of fraud that happens, but if you look for those outliers, it would be very easy to manage that fraud. Sorry, cat. So, and now child, not now. Sorry, 7 o'clock is a hard time to focus around here. So at any rate, so what this proposes to do is it takes out of the control of the international office the ability to extend someone when they need more time to finish their program. What it also proposes is a limitation of either 2 years or 4 years to how much time they're able to come into the United States without seeking a program extension through USCIS. Now, if you read anything about immigration over the summer, you know that USCIS was about to go bankrupt over the summer. Processing times were really crazy. They've made a lot of budget cuts that are making us worried about their overall efficiency. And then that's before adding 4,000 applications a year just because of this proposed regulation. So, you know, there's a lot of concerns about this proposed rule. the 2-year limitation disproportionately impacts those from African nations because they are focused on a really faulty overstay rate, which looks at a percentage of the population that overstays. So, you know, as an example, Tuvalu in the year that they cited, which was I think with 2018 or 2019, they had 6 people come. One of them overstayed, and that gave them over 10%. You know, so the entire population of Tuvalu has to follow this overstay rule. And then they didn't look at the countries that had the most overstays, which, you know, by percentage was not that high, but by numbers was quite significant. You know, over 11,000 for those from China, India, also a very significant population. So, you know, so that's one of the issues with the proposed rule is that it's just based on faulty assumptions. You know, personally, it was pretty insulting because it was basically calling international offices kind of that we were partners in engaging in this massive fraud. And anybody who knows me and my office, we are kind of sticklers for compliance. I mean, we want to be as helpful as possible, but we also want to make sure that the university is able to continue to host international students without any kind of, you know, interruption to our ability to host. So it's been an interesting month. So I think you all remember over the summer, there was the whole COVID issue where they were trying to change the COVID policy for the fall. We still do not have guidance for spring, so stay tuned. That may still rear its ugly head. But this proposed regulation, the deadline to comment on this, and so should I go through kind of a little mini lesson in notice and comment?
Yeah, that sounds great. I don't know if everyone is familiar with it.
So when you have a notice and comment rulemaking, the government has a proposed regulation that they want to go into effect. They give the public, which includes all of you, which includes international students, which includes organizations, the opportunity to submit a comment opposing the rule, and preferably why you oppose the rule, maybe offering suggested fixes to the rule, and pointing at problems with the rule. So like in administering it or whatever. So what we're in right now is this comment period, which ends tonight at 11:59. So if you don't get your comment in today by 11:59, you won't be able to comment. Right now, there's about 28,000 individual comments that have been submitted. And that's pretty significant for rulemaking. And a lot of these are organizations too. So this, you know, that organization may represent, you know, 50,000 members. So this is a pretty significant response rate for a very, this is a very technical rule which is hard to explain to people who don't work with international student issues. So anyway, after the notice and comment period is over, so now the government has to, sorry, I've got weird things going on with my light. So what happens now is the government is required to review all of the comments that they've received. And if they're doing what they're supposed to do, they're going to actually really review them and not just cram through a final rule. But this administration is not very good at following the legal requirements of the Administrative Procedures Act, which is why they keep losing in court, honestly, in immigration-related cases, because they keep trying to do things through executive order that they must do through notice and comment rulemaking. So they got the first part of this right. They did it through notice and comment, but if they don't actually review the submissions, then the next stage happens. If they cram it through without any changes or any fixes, then litigation will come. But right now it's too early for litigation. So I think a lot of students got confused, like, well, why aren't people talking about suing right now like they did over the summer with the COVID thing? Well, that's because the COVID thing was immediate. And this is just a proposal. It hasn't happened yet. So it could be that they get enough opposition to this that they just drop it. It could be that they push it through anyway, with changes or without, or it could be that they run out of time. And that's another possibility. If the administration changes, we do have an election next week in case you haven't heard. And so if the administration changes and they don't have time to get this through the legal requirements to get it published as a final rule, then the new administration, if there is one, could just never publish a final rule. They could just drop it. Or they could change it significantly and reissue it as an amended proposed rule. So, that's what's happening with the notice and comment process. There's also some legislative advocacy that's happening. So aside from the Democratic House and senators being opposed to this, and there was an op-ed in the New York Times over the weekend that was very, very good and well done. And I think the Wall Street Journal has also opposed this. I mean, major publications are opposing this pretty robustly. So there's also been a sign-on letter, what do they call that? Like a, friend of Congress or something. There's a term for it, but the Republican House leadership, there have been some people asking other Republican representatives to sign on. The system has asked our Republican representatives to the House to sign on to it. I don't know yet if anybody has. In terms of our advocacy efforts, NC State has also submitted a comment. It is an 18-page comment, which is a lot. But I helped write it, and I have a lot to say about it. So if you want to see what NC State said about it, then you can go to the portal and you can search for the letter and see what we had to say about it. But yeah, we were pretty strongly opposed to it. It's just going to change how we interact. It's not good for students. It's not good for schools. It interferes with university, the ability of universities to administer their programs. It's going to be expensive for everybody involved. It's a mess. And so hopefully all of this advocacy works and we either slow them down enough that maybe they just can't publish it, or that creates the record for future litigation. Questions?
Yeah, anyone with questions, go ahead, use the raise hand function.
Or you can put them in the chat too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone with questions? I'm sure
I
that,
had a quick question.
yeah.
Hey Elizabeth, I love the new hair, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So I was wondering, with all these shifts taking place, aside from students, international students not being able to complete their program, what are some of the other issues that they're facing with this uncertainty?
Well, right now, you mean in terms of like overall regulation and legislation?
Yes, since the beginning of COVID with that first shift.
Okay, well, I mean, so COVID is still, I mean, it is the issue for any new international student. If embassies don't reopen and if there's travel bans in place, then new students cannot start their program. So, we have about 1,000 missing grad students that couldn't arrive in the fall because their embassies didn't open in time or because they were subject to travel restrictions. So the travel bans still in place are for China, Iran, Brazil, the UK and Ireland, and the Schengen District of Europe. But with England, Ireland, and the UK, Ireland, and the Schengen District, there is a exemption if you're coming to study in the United States. There's also a COVID restriction for Canada and Mexico, but again, they have that education exemption, so they can enter if they're coming to study. And Canadians don't need visas, so they don't have to worry about the embassies opening. They can just fly in and or drive in and come on. So right now, while we are seeing some embassies reopening, and U.S. embassies reopening, and we are seeing some emergency appointments being granted, we're also seeing huge spikes around the world in places that had been pretty well under control. So India is one that we're keeping a really close eye on in terms of watching to see, they are now second in the world for numbers. When Brazil became second in the world for numbers, a travel ban was added. I have no information that says that that's going to happen, but it's something that I'm watching for, and we're talking about when students ask us about traveling. So COVID is still like a huge issue, right? In terms of mobility, and then for people to start their program. Then there's the whole, what are international students going to be allowed to register in for the spring? So, after some litigation, what they settled on was that continuing students who were here when COVID started in March, they could continue to be online without any in-person requirement. And so if the fall regulation or the fall exception goes through to spring, then we would expect that to hold. But any new international student that's arriving has to take an in-person class. So we are working, but in-person classes, just to recap, any research credit is an in-person class. We consider, so people, anyone in a thesis or dissertation program can add a research credit if they need it to get an in-person class. And then we've been working with Dr. Harries to target programs where we think we might have a critical mass, either to make sure that they have like a 1 credit hour seminar course or some kind of professional development course or something like that that would meet the in-person requirement. And likewise, we have something for the undergraduates too, to meet that requirement. So once we know how many people are coming, which is, it's really, honestly, it's too early yet, then we'll be able to kind of figure out the enrollment piece, but we'll be able to meet that need. But again, we could be thrown another curveball, but if we are, expect litigation again, and hopefully they learned their lesson, and they won't try that again. But it's concerning that, we have students registering for classes and we haven't gotten guidance for spring. So that's just, for things impacting international students. But the big thing that I spend a lot of time educating people about is that the F1 or the J1 for someone who wants to remain in the United States is just the start. And so anything affecting H-1B regulations, anything affecting green card processes for employment-based green cards, that's also going to impact international student choice to study in the United States. And there have been a lot of COVID-related restrictions on any kind of employment visa, which are supposedly temporary in nature. But there's also been some actual, well, in this case, it was proposed as final. So they skipped a step. They didn't allow comment, which is why there's already lawsuits being filed. So the way they're messing with the H-1B right now is to change the wage requirement. And so it's kind of a sneaky way to price out a company from sponsoring an H-1B, because it basically made the entry level for any position, which might be what someone gets, like, if the job requires a master's and you have a master's, then maybe you're a level 1 or level 2 wage. They're requiring now like a level 3 or level 4 wage. So, companies may decide that they can't do that out of equity because that's maybe higher than what their US workforce would pay. And actually the rules don't allow you to pay an international more than what you pay. Well, you're supposed to pay the actual or prevailing wage of what a US national is paid. So it's not supposed to advantage an H-1B worker, but it's not supposed to disadvantage them either. So, so anyway, anything that makes the H-1B harder is going to make people not want to come. And so that's what we're also concerned about, is just the pipeline of talent coming to the United States. It's going to take a while to for people to trust that any change in administration won't completely dismantle the system again.
All right, thank you so much for all of that.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
We have another question from Dalton. Dalton?
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight.
Sure.
So my question is actually about your professional opinion related to the litigation stage. So assuming, just hypothetically, if there isn't a change in administration during this next election, and this unfortunate administration is able to push through this unfortunate rule, in your professional opinion, what kind of lifespan do you give this this rule in the litigation battle? So we saw earlier this, I think this fall or the end of the summer, ICE was defeated pretty quickly, and I know it would be of great comfort to international students in my department to have some sort of, I guess, educated foresight about how this could play out if the administration doesn't change. Because maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but I'm going to say that if the administration does change, I can foresee this rule being scrapped rather readily. Maybe that's just my opinion, but
I think that I think that there's a lot of support for international. I mean, there has long been support. Actually, there's long been bipartisan support for international education. It's kind of amazing that we're where we are, and it's because of a very, very small population connected to this administration that is anti-immigrant. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. But the kind of classic Republican pro-business model has always been pro-international education because it's good for business. It's good for, I mean, it brings a lot of money into the country. It's good for, I mean, there's, I tend to focus on the touchy-feely part of it, that, that like it creates wonderful relationships and we all learn from each other and it's good for world peace. And, but for the people who look at statistics and the money, pro-business Republicans have been very supportive of international education. So if this particular piece of what is now the Republican Party is eradicated, then I think that things go back to kind of the status quo. I mean, we've been doing this in some version of this kind of with schools being able to extend for 40 years. So this is like a sea change in how we do stuff in the United States with international students. So litigation. So I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't I don't know, how the stars will align, because it's not just about the president, right? So, if the Senate is flipped, then you could see the Senate come in and pass legislation to prevent this from going into effect. So rules are written where the Senate hasn't spoken, right? Where Congress hasn't spoken. It's the executive agency saying, okay, this is what Congress wants us to do. We're going to write a rule on how to do it, right? So so Congress always has the ability to swoop in here and fix it. So there's a lot of ways that this could change. But in terms of litigation, I mean, I think that there's a strong case for saying that the data that was used was faulty, that the government hasn't considered all of the different possibilities in ways that they could manage this if they wanted to manage it in a different way. And that the harm wasn't properly considered. And, it doesn't help them that we were given the minimum number of days to respond. So 30 days is the absolute minimum by law. Usually for something this big, we would get 60 to 90 days to respond. So, it's been a scramble for agency, for organizations to respond to this. I've done almost nothing else for a couple of weeks, except write pieces of this along with my team. So, and then make sure it got to all the different people who had something to say about it. So so I'm hopeful that litigation would slow it down or help fix it. The way that would happen is through the fastest way that would happen is through a temporary restraining order, and that's what happened over the summer. And then the TRO was granted and the parties came to an agreement. So everybody kind of went on their merry way. But in this particular case, since it's a permanent change, I think that there's a possibility for a temporary restraining order to keep it from going into effect while the litigation continues. So, there was a thing that happened a few years ago where the government tried to, I think it was 2016 or 2017, where the government tried, I think it was 2017, where the government tried to put something called unlawful presence on international students. And that was litigated by Guilford College, actually. The heroes for the nation was little Guilford in North Carolina. They were the primary litigant and they won, and that went away. And that's why this rule is being proposed. It's to try and come up with a date certain 990 or the date certain 994 card so that they can start saying, okay, you're accruing unlawful presence, which makes it easier to deport people with a more permanent punishment, a 3 to 10 year bar to re-entering the United States. So this is a result of them losing in court.
Well, that's cheerful. Dalton,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. Dalton, you have
I'm just, I mean, I wish I could be more cheery.
No, I understand.
It's been you know, I've worked with this population for over 20 years, and it's been a joy. I mean, I love my student population. For those of you who don't know, I worked in private practice for a little while doing business immigration, but I came back to higher ed because I really missed my ability to work with students. And so it's still a joy. I mean, even when I'm having to tell people that it's not easy to go home right now and things like that, I mean, having those conversations is really important. But from an administrative standpoint, it's really hard. You know, there was also some legal action, which I'll mention too briefly, because I'm sure we haven't had a chance to comment on this just yet, but there was an arrest of a number of students for OPT fraud. OPT, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is a post-completion work authorization that we recommend and that USCIS approves, and it has different requirements depending on whether you're in your first year of OPT or if you're in your STEM OPT extension. But the individuals involved were paying kind of a sham company to come up with credentials that say that they were working, because these in order to remain in status, you have to show that you were working. And the really difficult thing about all that is that the acting secretary of USCIS got up and started talking about how DSOs, which is the designated school officials who recommend these, are suddenly also complicit in all of this. That somehow we're able to know that a fraudulent company has been entered by the students, and we are not required to know, and we do not have the resources to investigate that. That's what law enforcement is for. But the interesting thing that I'll be putting, you know, this is kind of late breaking news on Thursday or Friday, so it didn't make it into the comment. But in my personal comment, which I'm finishing up, I will be mentioning that it seems like the government has the ability to track fraud with SEVIS. And I will point to this arrest. And so they don't need this rule in order to go after bad actors. So I see a question from another student privately. Aside from educating ourselves on the issues, thank you for doing this just now, what else can we do to support graduate international students who may be affected by legislation or travel in our programs? I mean, I think the biggest thing you can do, and I would welcome to, you know, for the international students who are here, I would love to turn it over to them, because they're in a better position to tell them what they need, or to tell you all what they need. But I think that knowing that you have their back and their support, and that you are, that you know, maybe you're filing your own personal comment to this proposed rule, you know, those are all things that I think mean a lot to them. Telling them that you're, you know, I mean, that you're participating in our election is also important. You know, so I think knowing that you have their back is really important. So, but I'll leave it up to some international students that are here to comment on that.
Does anyone have any comments?
Yes, I have two quick questions. So I actually sent it to Elizabeth. Thank you so much for your presentation and all the work that you have done for us. So I have, my first question is that, will there be any changes to the GSPP package for international students after the spring 2021? And my second question is whether or not we can work more than 20 hours a week during the winter break.
Okay, so the changes to the GSSP package is what I think Dr. Harries is here for. So I don't make those decisions. So the package is a financial aid package. It's not necessarily has anything to do with immigration. In terms of the restrictions on campus employment, during the break, which is very long this year, so starting December 5th and going until now, January 19th, so in a partial week, we don't encourage you to exceed 20 hours. So I would drop down to 20 the week of the 18th of January. But during those, 6 weeks or 7 weeks, maybe, you can work more than 20 hours a week on campus. Let me see, I've got
chime in on the GSSP piece.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just waiting for my camera to show up, sorry. Yeah, there won't be any changes based on this. I mean, we're not trying, I mean, there's no reason for us to respond to that piece. I mean, I think, ultimately it's the process about getting the extension that has really made things complicated. And, we're certainly cognizant of the fact that, especially at the doctoral level, it's going to take people, if we look at the average, and I gave Beth some numbers from time to degree. The average is 5 years for international students, which is about a semester faster, in some cases 2 semesters faster than the domestic population. So, I mean, it's not as if there's no evidence that international students are somehow lagging in terms of trying to get through their degrees. So we certainly don't anticipate any changes to GSSP to reflect that. I mean, like Beth, I certainly think that we're very hopeful that the rule change doesn't happen, but if it does, I mean, we're hopeful that there'll be litigation that will pretty rapidly overturn it, because I think Beth made an excellent point. I mean, it's a draw. I mean, it's amazing for a country that can pull talent from all over the world to make a better country. And we're kind of losing that through what's being suggested here. So, the business community favors it, the academic community favors it. So I think there's some strong forces that are coalescing to fight it. And I'll stop there.
Any other questions for me?
Alrighty. If there are no other questions for Beth, I just want to say thank you for spending some time with us tonight and explaining everything going on. Ooh, Devesh?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Before we finish, I have one other question. Will NC State be filing a litigation if it goes to litigation? Will NC State be filing a lawsuit?
So the thing I will say about litigation is to remember that NC State is part of a system. So NC State would not act alone in litigation against the federal government. It would probably only go through as a system. You also need to understand the political environment of North Carolina and our local elected officials, and the fact that the Board of Governors is appointed by what is currently a Republican majority legislature. Does that answer your question? Without exactly answering your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will let you all comment on that. I mean, I think that what I think you don't see is that even with like the summer when there were agency or state governments and state public universities suing, I think what you didn't see, because it's quiet, it's behind the scenes, is that our federal affairs liaisons were very active on the phone and writing letters, and that stuff matters. So don't discount the quiet stuff, because that's the back room conversations that happen between colleagues. That's what it's called, a dear colleague letter. Sorry, the Republican letter is a dear colleague letter.
Okay. Thank you, though.
So let's see. I mean, again, elections matter, and we've got local elections that are happening. So who knows what will happen?
Let's hope. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you for all the work you're doing. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? All right. Beth, thank you so much for coming tonight and speaking to us and giving us all of this fantastic information. We so appreciate you and all of the work you're doing, especially because, you know, approximately a third of our graduate students are international students, and that's so important that we protect them and that we rally behind them. So if everyone could please give Beth a round of applause, a virtual.
Oh, so embarrassed.
No, don't be embarrassed. We love you, Beth.
Well, and well done on GSA's comment letter as well. It looks great. So
Yes, Beth was also
just make sure 11:59.
Oh, as long as we're done with our meeting, it will get in on time.
Cut the meeting short to get it in.
Oh, that is, I certainly don't want to be here until midnight. But yes, and also Beth really helped us with the preparation of this letter. So the comments were fantastic and really helpful for us focusing in on.
Well, I could see that you were focusing on the legal stuff, and I was like, forget that. There are lots of experts that will focus on that. Focus on the impact. And you did that, and you told a great story, a great narrative. So that's what's powerful coming from student organizations.
And we will get to vote on that tonight. So thank you,
All
Beth.
right.
Thank you again. You are welcome to head out if you'd like to, or hang out for the rest of our meeting. Lord knows it'll be an adventure.
I have someone to get to bed, so I will say goodnight. But thanks again for having me.
All right, thank you so much, Beth. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. All righty, everybody. Thumbs up. Was that like informative? Was that helpful? Was that good? I thought that was informative. I learned a lot. I always learn a lot when Beth comes to visit. And so awesome. I love to see this. So unfortunately, because Sumit was sick, we do not have the minutes right now. I will bug him about getting them, but he has like a really high fever, and I really did not want him doing anything tonight. I wanted him just sleeping and focusing on hopefully not having COVID, which is my biggest concern. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get right on into let's see if I can do this effectively. I'm sorry, I'm struggle bussing right now. Here we go. Here's hoping that this works. Is this what I wanted? No, but this is. Can everyone see my screen? Just a yes, no, maybe so.
Yes.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. So we have our reports of the executive officers. Sumit is not here, so we'll just jump right on down to Josh. Josh?
Hi, everyone. So nothing new to report. The GSA still has money. We've spent pretty much none of it because nothing has happened. That being said, block grant submissions are open. You are welcome to submit one. But I do want to point out that any block grant submitted this year must include how you will follow the COVID-related guidelines that are put in place by the university and or the state. And then I want to apologize. The finance committee has not met yet. I'm still working on that, figured out, but that's on me at this point. So yeah, any questions?
Any questions for Josh? All right, seeing no questions, we're gonna move on. Emily, Student Government Relations.
All right, great, thank you. We are working on communicating with the Office of Surveys, Office of Research, to administer a graduate student survey that would be administered by the Graduate Student Issues Task Force. So keep an eye out. If you have any questions that you would like to ask regarding the graduate student experience, please forward them on to me, and we will make sure that they make it onto the survey. Student government, the undergraduate student government is advocating for a student council for COVID-19 to provide input into the reopening plan for spring 2021. I'll keep you updated with this. I know that it has been brought up to administration, but not sure, we're kind of in a holding pattern with it. But I have advocated to have graduate student representation on that council if it is formed. Next is voting. So again, early voting is happening. I do have the weekdays here. And there was a question in our last meeting, if you can drop off your absentee ballot in person. Yes, it is possible to do that. If that is something you wish to do, please vote. And then lastly, the UNC system racial equity task force town halls are taking place. There are 2 more that are happening this week, but you must pre-register to attend. So I have included the links if you're interested in registering. I encourage everyone to register and listen in. They're very informative from what I've heard. And with that, that's it.
Are there any questions for Emily? All righty, seeing no questions, we're gonna move it down to Devesh. Devesh, what you got for us?
As you might have seen me typing, please submit your photos for the website, your headshots, basically. I sent this out last meeting, and I've got exactly 8 responses. There are 50 grad students. Come on, guys. Yeah, I don't have any other updates apart from, and the case updates are going to be given by Rosa or Dalton.
Awesome. Are there any questions for, oh, I see a raised hand. Did I see a raised hand?
If we already have photos from like last year, do we need to resubmit those?
It's for record keeping, so I would rather, oh yeah, I would like you guys to submit again.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I see a raised hand from John.
Yeah, where do we send those to?
I have attached a link there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Devesh, can you also add that into the chat for everyone?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Devesh, pumpkins.
Well, yeah. Rosa is gonna give you updates for that.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Emily's really excited about these pumpkins. I think we all are. I'm really excited for an event. Any questions for Devesh? All right, seeing no more questions, Kunchen?
Hi, hello everyone, and I have some updates. First of all, it's the plan to change the COVID-19 schedule revision. So currently you can still change this semester's grades, but starting next semester, that may not be the same. So the current issue is, as a type in there, you can actually cherry pick the courses you want to count towards your GPA. Say if a student actually take 4 courses this semester, get 3 C's and 1 A, the student can change that 3 C's to satisfactory and has a 4.0 GPA. That's now something we want to see. So that's gonna be changed. And I'll give you guys updates with how they're gonna change that. And here is a histogram of how the policy is, how the previous revision has been done based on what grade you have to change. So the majority is gonna be between B+, B, and B-. And those actually, it's kind of bothering a little bit because those are actually, you're passing the, you can have that grade and pass the course, and people are changing it to satisfactory. So that's kind of the reason why they're doing this. And out of 1179 changes, way more than half of them is done after the grades being posted. So that actually gives us the idea that people are actually trying to manipulate the system. And my second update is on starting next semester, the add and drop course has to be done within 10 days. So it's about on the census day. If it's afterwards, it's gonna have result a W on the transcript. And I put a link to the official update there. So, and my third announcement is a small presentation. But before that, do you have any questions regarding those 2 items?
I see a hand raised from John. John, you want to take it?
Yeah, why is this a bad thing that they're allowed to, why is this in the middle of a pandemic, people are allowed to switch from a graded course to a pass-fail, a bad thing?
because that manipulate your overall GPA, and they don't currently require you to provide a detailed reason on why you're changing it. And the administration is concerned people are just playing the system to benefit their grades.
So the administration thinks it's a bad thing, because it sounds like you're
Well,
saying that the GSA thinks
we
it's bad.
have no control over this. I don't know the current rules for the next spring, but I know they're gonna be changed. So there has been some proposals. One of them is actually counting the satisfactory as a B minus. So they haven't established how they want to proceed with that. I'll give you guys updates once I know the final ruling.
I think that the concern, and Kuncheng, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the biggest concern that was voiced, and one that I think the executive board by and large agreed with, was that, you know, the majority of people who are changing their grades have B's or better, really. And I'd like to point out also that 6 people with A's changed their grade to a satisfactory, unsatisfactory, which I truly wholeheartedly cannot fathom why you would do that. But I think that what they noticed was that this wasn't protecting people who maybe were struggling in their classes, but really just being used by people who didn't want to have a B on their transcript. Because ultimately, B's get degrees, which is my life motto. I don't know about anyone else, but and I would turn that over to Dean Harries for any additional clarification.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I do want to clarify is that ultimately this will be passed by the administrative board of the grad school, which is not, I mean, that's faculty and students. And certainly the voices of all those groups will come into it. I mean, to me, it was a shock to see how many Bs were, I'll be honest about it, how many Bs were being shifted to an S. And I think ultimately it's going to hurt students if someone actually looks at their transcript and realizes that their 4.0 is based on potentially one course.
Are there any other questions? I thought I saw another hand raised. Yes, Jesse.
I think some of that with the distribution, why you see some A's getting switched. I know some people I know, they just put everything to S, so their transcript has less questions asked. You know, like if they had a C, they just make it all S's. So I mean.
Well, actually, all those 6 A's came from one course in design.
Gotcha.
So I'm not quite sure why that happened or yeah, what's going on there, but that's where it occurred.
All righty. For this next part, I'm going to stop screen sharing, and Kuncheng, I will let you take it away.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So since we're not getting any conference and travel awards application this semester, the research committee is putting together a contest. So we have named it Pack Picks. It's a graduate research showcase. So this contest will actually be asking the student, as I mentioned during our last meeting, to submit the infographic posters that actually promote their current or past research while they're actually at NC State. So we're actually looking for some poster like this to be submitted. So it's not like a professionally done one where you made for a conference, but for a larger audience. And we have set up some submission rule and timeframes. So for the submission, we're gonna announce it by the end of the semester with a submission portal. And the student can work on this during the winter break and the entire January. And the currently deadline for the submission will be February 5th next year. And with the evaluation, it's gonna be done within the research recognition committee. And if we actually get a lot more submission that we are prepared for, we're gonna recruit more members from the reps to help us evaluating. And as for the rewards, we're gonna go for $200 gift cards for the first place, and $100 for the second, and $25 for the third. And all of them actually gonna receive a laminated printout version of the poster. I'm hoping print out on the canvas where you can just directly hand behind you during the Zoom meeting, which gonna create some fun background. That's the current plan. Does anybody have any questions or suggestions to how we should run this?
Are there any questions, comments, thoughts? This is a great idea. I tend to agree. This is a really, really fantastic thought that the academics committee thought of. So really, really nice job, everyone. We have a question. Yes.
I'm so sorry. I should have done the little hand thing.
That's okay, Amber. Go ahead.
My question was, I'm just taking some notes. Is this something that we can go ahead and share with our departments, or is this something that we should just keep on our radar until you all have more information?
Sharing. Yeah, you can start sharing. It's definitely happening. It's just how we're trying to establish a evaluation criteria and everything else. So it's definitely going to happen.
Awesome. Yeah, my next question was if you could send the PowerPoint so we could share that, but I see that someone just commented that in the chat. So awesome.
Cool. I'll send out this PowerPoint.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
And then we do have another question in the chat about would these be displayed anywhere?
Yes, we're trying to host on a virtual gallery online. So you can actually walk around in that virtual gallery and see all the arts we got. So that's a current plan. And we're also contacting libraries to see if we can actually put your work on the library. Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, are there any other questions?
I actually have one question.
Yeah.
With a lot of these poster display competitions, they are difficult for like certain sciences that do not like display well. Like for example, biology is rather easy to like take a picture of something really, really cool and it displays and scores well. But some fields like math and computer science, like visually are kind of difficult, even though like the work can be some, as rigorous. So you said you were still working on like the selection criteria for like who does well and who does not. That might be something worth mentioning to the committee. Maybe you guys can work out a way how to, account for that.
Yeah, I think, Kenchung, if you don't mind, I think I have an answer for that. It was actually my next report was for those who maybe are not too tech savvy, but many of you guys, maybe 95% of you guys are still working on dissertations and theses, and those have interesting research topics as well. So in the Paw Prince newsletter, we'll also be hosting a research spotlight, and that also has gifts. So I promise we won't be giving out NC State pens for that, but that will also have prize winners too.
Sachin?
Strictly for research, could it be also projects that you're working on? I know that with our program, there aren't as many people that are doing specifically research, but there might be a few more that are doing projects or other kinds of things like that.
Yes, as long as it has something to do with the work you've done while you're at NC State, we're accepting it. You have to write a paragraph to explain your work. So during that paragraph, we're going to request you to determine when you did this work. Yeah. And also answering the biology question. So we're trying to keep the content a little bit loose on what you can include. You can go as basic as, a simple idea or a simple concept. As long as the display, infographic kind of way, we're accepting it. So it doesn't have to go so much depth. You have to write 3 or 4 pages of explaining what to do, but you can pick up something fun that's at least a little bit related to your research. We're accepting it.
As a follow-up question, for the one-year programs who haven't had much opportunity to do specific like projects or research in NC State, what should they be doing?
Yeah, because we're trying to follow the rule established by the Envision Research Image, as part of their contest, you have to explain why, how your work is going to contribute to the NCSU community. So unfortunately, we have to have that kind of logic within. So we'll discuss within the committee to see if how can we do with the first year students. I'll keep you updated on that.
All righty. Are there any other questions for Kuncheng? All righty, seeing none. Asia?
Right. Again, if you're a little hesitant about the iconographic contest, please still feel free to email me ahead of time. But we will be coming out with some more guidelines on that event as well.
Are there any other questions about the research spotlight? I know I'm excited for it. All right, seeing none. I believe Emily had to step out very briefly. So her report is all written. Please read her report and shoot her an email if you have any questions. I'm not going to go through the full report that I have. I'm just going to take the highlights, which is Tuition Review Committee met. There will be a 2.5% increase in out-of-state tuition at both the undergraduate and graduate student levels. This was an ongoing and evolving discussion, but ultimately this was the number that the committee came to with both student and administrative support. And this will also keep the GSSP harmless, meaning that grad students on the GSSP won't get any kind of surprise bills or anything weird. The fee review committee, there will be a $38 increase across both semesters in the student health fee. This is going to be really offset by the fact that the Thompson Hall renovation indebtedness fee has been paid off, and I believe that was $38 or maybe $36. And this $38 increase in the student health fee is actually going to employ, I believe, 3 new counselors in the counseling center, and then 2 new people in student health. So ultimately, I think we're getting a great deal on that. We will be inviting the new Vice Chancellor and Dean of DASA, whoever they may be, to our January GSA meeting. So keep an update for that. And finally, go vote, go vote, go vote. If you can vote, go vote. I don't know if I can say that 5 or 6 more times, but please go vote if you haven't already. Early voting is in Tally, and it's fantastic and easy and clean and safe. Are there any questions about my update? Any questions? All right, seeing none, and that everyone here has already voted, so I'm super excited. We have our committee chair reports. So very quickly, do we have one for teaching effectiveness or a committee chair?
Yes, we don't have any update at this point, but we have meeting tomorrow and probably we'll have some update in the next meeting.
Awesome, thank you. Nothing from finance committee. Case, I know we've got some updates from Case.
Hi, yes, this is Rosa McDonald, co-chair of Case Community and Social Engagement Committee. We've been planning a pumpkin carving contest. It's scheduled for this Friday, October 30th. There's 2 shifts, one from 12 to 2 p.m. and the other from 3 to 5 p.m. All materials are provided, including the pumpkin carving material and painting material. So we hope that you will join us out on the Court of Carolinas on Friday afternoon. And also please share this with members in your respective individual organizations to share the word. We posted this on the GSA Instagram account. So you can go there, but I've also put the link in the chat, and I will, if someone could add it to the report agenda for today, that would be great. Thank you guys so much. Look forward to seeing you there.
Awesome. Do we have any questions for Case? All righty. Seeing no questions, Research Recognition Committee, do you have any updates?
Everyone, I'm Grayson. Ken Ching already gave a great unveiling of our infographic competition, Pack Picks. I'd just like to thank you all for the input you've already provided. And if you have any more questions or feedback for it, please feel free to email me. We have a great committee working hard on this. We're working on all the background information right now, and our goal is to have an announcement for you guys to send out to your programs, hopefully before the middle of November. So keep your eyes out for that. And then after that, we'll really need your help promoting it. So thank you in advance for your feedback, and just email me if you have anything else.
All righty, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. Judicial Committee, any updates? All right, seeing none. LASA updates, anything, Kyle?
Yeah, just real quickly. Well, first, hi, everybody. So we met last week. We elected me as the chair. And I just want to say real quick that our goal here is to track legislation that's relevant to graduate students and then sort of advocate at the state and federal level around those issues. So we have been working with the executive board on the letter about the proposed DHS rules, which I think we'll be voting on here in just a little bit. So everybody will get a look at that. And I just want to also say that if anyone has any issues that they would like us to look at or deal with, please feel free to email me, and my email is there on the Google Doc. Thank you.
Awesome. Any questions?
Kyle, this is Emily Van Zeus.
Sure.
So NAGPS, which is the National Association for Graduate Professional Students, I think, something like that. We are also, we just went through legislative action days where we are now preparing to meet with legislators. So we have a few bills that we're doing some prep work. So I think you and I should touch base and we can coordinate so we're not duplicating efforts.
That is great. Yeah, so let's email and we'll figure something out.
Perfect.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Love to see it. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Special Projects Committee, Haley. All righty. I'll just quickly give the update then. We met on October 9th and we elected Haley as our committee chair. Stay tuned for updates. We have a couple of cool things starting out and in the works. So with that, I will hop us out of our updates and back into the main agenda, assuming that everyone can see it. And we have our advisor report. Dr. Harries, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Lexi, and thank you all for being here tonight. I want to talk about a few things. I mean, we've talked a little bit about the SU, and so I won't rehash that, but I do want to talk a little bit about the spring semester. I think as everyone saw last week, there was a decision to start the semester later. And, you know, the overall motivation for that was to allow increased time for testing. The student population in university housing will be about 4,000, a little bit more than 4,000 students, all in singles. At least that's the current plan. And, you know, as was in the fall, the decision of how to run courses is being left to the individual instructors. And so once again, I think we will be at less than 30% of sections face-to-face, and certainly the vast majority of those will be small. I mean, I know there's concerns within certain programs where students are not getting direct access to things like how to do experiments and equipment that they might traditionally do, so that you know, I think they're thinking about how they might work through some of that, but I think that still remains a significant challenge, and certainly no decision has been made in terms of what'll happen there. On the sort of fun note, not quite as fun as carving pumpkins, but I think it's pretty fun. We are holding our 3MT contest, the 3-minute thesis. We actually had more submissions this time than ever before. So traditionally, we've had about 30 submissions, and this time we had 45. So the virtual mode, I think, is helping to engage more people. And, you know, to be honest, we're seeing that within our professional development realm too. We have, whereas before we might have been serving a few hundred students with certain events, we're serving about 3 times as many to more than that. So the online move of professional development has worked pretty well. There's some things that probably would work better in the face-to-face environment, but you know, it's great to reach that many students, and certainly it's also allowing online graduate students to have more access to the professional development content. And so with the 3MT, the finals will be held on December 2nd, I think, from 12 to 1. So that's after break. And I mean, when after break has started. And so I certainly encourage all of you to support your fellow students and to help us choose the people's choice. So I'll certainly get more information to you about what the Zoom links will be and so on. But at this point, you know, we're getting surprisingly close to the end of the fall semester. We have about 3 more weeks to go. It's kind of crazy. It's going to be a long winter break, and exactly what the dynamics of that are going to be, I think, remain to be seen, although there's every intention to keep labs open. I mean, once again, the record in research has been pretty phenomenal in terms of a lack of cases and so on. And overall, the graduate population has certainly been much less impacted than undergrads for reasons I have no idea how that could be. But so that's where things stand right now. And, you know, related to what Beth was talking about, certainly we're hoping that the fall is relatively more normal again, but who knows? And we certainly hope to, you know, have international students able to travel to this country the way they did pre-COVID. So thank you all, and be well. And I will say I voted early today, Lexi, and it was phenomenally easy. I mean, I guess at this point, I mean, there was no line, and I mean, they have a huge number of stations set up in Tally, so it's pretty seamless.
Yes, there's absolutely no reason not to go vote.
I mean, it literally took me 5 minutes.
I'm jealous. It took me like 30, but that's okay. Are there any questions for Dr. Harries at this time?
What time did you go to Tally to vote?
I went, let's see. Oh, I should mention, that reminds me of another thing. This morning, I actually, as I think many of you may know, commencement is going to be virtual, and it's going to be for the whole 2020 year. And so I was actually filming my part from 9 to about 9:30, and so I got to Tally at about 9:40. And I mean, there were literally, I would say 5% of the booths were being used. I mean, I think a lot of people went early, and I decided to wait a little bit, but that seemed to be a good time. There also is a website for any of the early voting sites, and I'll try to find it and put it in the chat, where you can actually see how long the wait is, and they update it pretty regularly.
I think Allison just got that one covered.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Allison.
We have a question from Michelle.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Harris. I just had a quick question. I know you said that the main motivation behind starting the semester later was to allow more time for testing.
Yep.
So is there going to be any testing requirement for any students living on campus, or any students even like attending classes or working on campus, or is that still unknown?
Yeah, I don't think that's been completely finalized from what I know. I think they're, you know, one of the things that I've talked about with the exec group is, you know, some of the universities in the UNC system and also nationally, for instance, are using testing of wastewater to see whether there, you know, are potentially clusters in residence halls. And, you know, my sense is, but I really don't know, that it will be focused on-campus residential students. You know, should it be more widespread than that? I mean, certainly there's debate on that. And I think, you know, I read the Chronicle of Higher Education and Inside Higher Ed every morning, and there is a lot going on in that space. So, I mean, I think we're still in an incredibly fluid environment. So anything I tell you right now is sort of what I know at 8:20 p.m. on today, you know, and it could be very different by the time, well, in a week and 2 weeks, by the time we start thinking about really bringing students back. So, I mean, I think this second wave that seems to be cresting and moving across the country is certainly going to give people pause in terms of, you know, where are we?
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Harris? All righty. Seeing none, we are going to take a 5-minute stretch break. So we will reconvene at 8:26 p.m. Until then, go get some water, go get some coffee, go get whatever you may need, want, desire, etc. And we'll see you real soon. Give everyone a second to get back to their computers. Get that last stretch in. Home stretch of the meeting. We're almost there, everyone. And I will begin screen sharing now. Okay, so jumping right back in, we have no old business. So we are going to go directly into new business. And for this, we are going to begin with the spring 2021 reopening statement. If it will load, there we go. I'd like to first start out by saying that this statement, initially, one of the representatives did bring forward a statement, and the GSA Executive Board did not decide to move forward with it due to a number of things, but the majority of the reasoning was it wasn't forward thinking enough, it wasn't proactive, and we wanted to put forward something that was very, very proactive, that really focused on what was going to happen in spring 2021. So a big group effort went into putting this together. Are there any other statements, comments, questions from exec board members before we open it up about this statement? All right, seeing none, are there any comments? Well, we'll start with questions. Are there any questions for the executive board regarding this statement? All right, seeing none, we will.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
So I saw on the agenda that it said we were going to vote on this tonight. Under my previous experience in GSA, things went through a reading first and then had to move to the next meeting for a vote. Is that still the case?
So based on the Constitution, if it goes through the executive board process, it does not need to go through a reading period. So no, we will not be going through a reading period. This is we will be voting on these two statements tonight. One of them is an emergency read through because obviously we have a limited time period for that one. And this one also in many respects also has a very constrained time period. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I will open it up to any comments that people have. James, go right ahead.
Thank you, Lexi. So we did a survey of our students, and there was a consensus in the department of students complaining about shortened semesters, so that the lack of breaks meant there was little time for them to catch up. I know we had briefly discussed having student input on the coming semester and scheduling, but is there a way that we can incorporate that into the statement?
Yes, we can in fact vote to amend a statement on the floor in order to incorporate additional feedback. So do you have something specific that you would like added in a specific location? You can send that via the chat and I can just kind of pop it right in there and we can take a vote on it.
Sure, I can try drafting something.
Alrighty, in the meantime, are there any other comments? Yes, I see one from John.
Yeah, I just had a question about the PPE statement, that PPE continues to be readily and accessibly provided to all members of the Wolfpack community. I was wondering, besides gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer, which is pretty limited in its effectiveness, how readily available is PPE really, besides selling masks in the store? For example, could we maybe suggest like having masks accessible, disposable masks accessible when people walk into doors in the same way that hand sanitizer is?
Yeah, I think so. To the best of my knowledge, and Dr. Harries, I'm going to default to you on this one. I think that the university did buy quite a substantial number of disposable masks that have been made available, but
yeah, those are being distributed by the individual colleges. So I don't know exactly what the process is for a college, but I think something like $1 million worth of disposable masks were bought, but for both students, staff, and faculty. So they're certainly available. I mean, I know based on where the grad school is, there's signs for the College of Textiles where you go to pick up masks. So once again, I'm not sure how that's being run in each college, but certainly masks, disposable masks were, a huge amount of those were purchased and should be available. If they're not in your college, let me know.
No, we got some as grad students, but I just mean like having them it would be an easy way to ensure compliance. And if someone forgets a mask, to just have them, a box of them at, doors of various buildings for when students are going to class or walking around campus.
Yeah, I think just in terms of the number of buildings that have classrooms in them, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think logistically it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, I think it's something that we can ask for. Of course, if you want to draft something up, we can vote to add that into the statement. But logistically, it would be challenging, but not impossible. So yes, the answer is yes, we could do that. So if you want to, again, just put that in the chat and we can take a vote on that one as well. John, do you have another question or comment?
No, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Hannah?
Hey, so I was just wondering, in addition to the graduate students shouldn't feel pressure kind of statement, if there's a way that we could request some sort of appropriate channels for us to someone or somebody we can talk to other than our advisors and the DGPs if we feel like we're being put into an unsafe situation. I think it would be valid for us to have some sort of guidance, someone we can go to if we feel like we're being put in a situation that makes us feel unsafe, where we don't feel like we are being treated fairly, other than just being stuck going and teaching if you don't feel safe, or being stuck not feeling like you can stand up for yourself. I feel like there should be some established method for us as graduate students to file some sort of, not necessarily a complaint, but file some sort of like, or talk to someone if we need help, if that makes sense.
Yes. And so what I can say on that is that the university has actually created a mechanism for this. Again, Dr. Harris, I'm going to defer to you on this. The chancellor has mentioned it to me. Dr. Harris, do you have
Yeah,
any?
so I mean, I think for grads, I mean, there's certainly policies in place. I think for grad students, if you don't feel comfortable talking to folks in your department, and I certainly understand why that might be. At this point, there's basically 3 courses of action that you can take, and one of those is to talk to the associate dean responsible for graduate education in your college. We've talked a lot about it on what's known as the Graduate Operations Council, which is a group of those associate deans. You can also engage the ombuds with that conversation, and I've also talked to Mike quite a bit about it. And then you can also come talk to me, and I'm certainly more than willing to have conversations about those issues and try to help navigate a solution.
Dr. Harris is always certainly willing to get involved with these issues. I've solicited his help more than once. So we do have something in the chat from both John and James. Because James has submitted his comment first, well, he submitted his statement comment thing first before John's. I'm going to go with that one first for the vote, and then John will get to yours. So for this, I'm going to put this in as under the second bullet. I assume here is where you're recommending it, James?
Can I just add something, James? I mean, to a comment is that there are break days within the current calendar. And I'll admit, I can't remember whether it's 4 or 5. I think it's 5 days. And those will be moved they will be offered throughout the semester, but they're not going to be, it won't always be a Monday, so that Monday courses aren't disrupted. It'll move from Monday through Friday. I mean, I realize completely it's not the extended period of a typical spring break, which I know, at least back in my days when I was a student, was definitely a godsend to catch up. And I was fortunate enough to go to a place where we had 2 weeks, so could have a week of fun and then a week of catching up. But I think one of the problems with significantly extending the semester is that then, as it stands now, I think there's 2 days between the graduation and the start of summer semester. And I think you end up impacting these other semesters as well if we extend that one, if that makes any sense.
All right, we can just remove it then and just have that as a matter for student government representation to give.
I mean, it can stay in there if you, I mean, but I would put it other than break days because that is in the schedule. So, I mean, if you're talking about, having a week off, that's different than, a series of break days distributed throughout the semester.
Yes, the feedback on my end was non-specific. It's just for this semester, at least the students were feeling that the shortened semester was putting pressure on them as far as graduate students were.
I mean, so those break days are part of the current schedule.
Okay, I personally don't know the ideal solution to it. I'm up for.
I don't think there is an ideal solution, James. I hate to say that, but it's trying to make things work to the best of our ability. And
can we amend that to at least put in a comment that
if you say it, I can probably write it out.
I mean, one thing that I would say, it maybe is the way to phrase it, James, and you can disagree with this since I'm kind of now editing what you're saying, is the critical elements that breaks allow for student mental health, grad student mental health, and that those issues should be kept in mind as any schedule is developed.
Yeah, okay, we can put it as that then.
So I'm gonna type it as best as I remember it.
I would just say when making a schedule, the university should keep in mind graduate student mental health and ensure that there are sufficient breaks to allow that, or something like that.
All right, if this updates, and we'll see how many typos I made. Does that
get rid of allow? Oh, when making a well, yeah, you don't need the allow. After.
There we go. James, does that encompass what you were seeking? Or your constituent?
Yes, that encompasses it, although I think after the and is not parallel.
And
plan for.
Yes, that does become parallel.
That
All
addresses it. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to take a quick vote on this. We are not voting on the document as a whole. We are voting on this change to the document. So in the participants tab, you have yes and no functions. You may click yes if you would like to vote yes, and no if you would like to vote no. You do not have to click if you would like to abstain. A simple majority is what we require for this. Okay, seeing a majority of reps have voted with 37 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and however many abstentions, this does pass. So we will include this into the statement. The next one I'm going to add in was a revision from John Headland. John, I assume this is where the PPE one is meant to go? This change, yes?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna add a period there. Okay, so PPE continues to be readily and accessibly provided to all members of the Wolfpack community, including access to face masks free of cost. Does anyone have any questions, comments, additions to that? Questions? All right. Seeing none, we can move into a period of voting where you will vote yes or no using the participants tab. Please do so now. You'll have 30 seconds to do so.
Am I allowed to vote on it, or?
Yes, you may vote on your own stuff. All righty. Seeing a majority of students have voted yes, with 38 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and however many abstentions, this measure does pass and will be edited to reflect in the document. Are there any other additional changes that people would like to see or people are concerned about, or any general concerns regarding the document in general before we move to a vote on it?
I would like to say something.
Yes, go ahead.
I call to table the spring reopening statement the executive board has put out until both that statement and the call for accountability can be read to the representatives. The call for accountability was dismissed by the executive board without transparency beforehand, during, or after this decision until now. And a direct alternative was put in its place. Although the executive board disagreed with the call for accountability, they should have made their problems known long in advance with full transparency. But instead they chose to quash the discussion. I believe that this is an abuse of power and constituents have the right to be heard in this body. Even if you disagree with the substance for the call for accountability, it is still important for representatives to have a voice. Even if it is not explicitly described in the GSA Constitution to disallow the executive board to not bring the previous statement to the floor and present an alternative statement immediately thereafter. It is not within the spirit of the GSA's Constitution to suppress constituents. For this reason, I call to table the alternative statement titled Spring Reopening Statement until the call for accountability is read. Owing to this, I plan to make a motion during the open floor to have the call for accountability read.
Thank you, Andrew. So I don't know if there is anything in the Constitution regarding tabling statements. However, I'm of course willing to entertain the motion. Do we have any comments regarding this motion?
I'll second Andrew.
Okay, we have a second by Anna. Was that Anna?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. So do we have any comments by any members of the GSA regarding the motion to table? So a motion to table means that we would hold off on a vote on this until later, essentially, until the next meeting.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
What was the purpose of not bringing Andrews to a vote? Was there it's like, you know, like just tabling it off the side kind of seems not transparent. So I was just curious, why was that thought, like why wasn't it voted and brought to everyone to decide?
So yeah, the GSA Constitution says that a statement that is brought to the floor of the GSA Executive Board must be voted on, to the GSA must be voted on by the Executive Board. And then the Executive Board will make a decision about whether or not that statement fits with the charge and objectives of the GSA. The GSA Executive Board, and I will allow other members of the GSA Executive Board to speak if they would like to, had a number of concerns with the statement and ultimately decided that it was not in the best interest of the GSA to vote on a statement like that. But I will yield to other members of the GSA Executive Board if they'd like to add anything.
Right. To back what Lexi is explaining, we've looked over the documents time and time again and actually went through each paragraph and saw how closely that associated with each of our opinions personally and what we're bringing to the executive board. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath, just ran up the stairs. Sorry. But, and also the letter was signed the GSA. So we actually had to diligently look into this and see if this was a representation of what we likely would have come up with. And so we looked at it time and time again, and we came up with, you know, we put forth steps to create documents similar to this and action plans similar to the one that Andrew brought forth to us.
All righty. I have a question from Rachel.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the options are in regards to the reading. My concern is more so pushing off voting on this particular statement, on the reopening statement, until November, just because a lot of big decisions are happening right now. And I don't know how beneficial it'll be to ask for all these things to happen in a month when a lot of those decisions will already be made. But I'm not sure about what the options are for the reading. I'm not very familiar with the protocols in regards to that.
So are you asking about what would happen if we did table this or did not table this, or do you have a clarifying question you'd like, or?
Yes, pretty much. Is there a way to do both? Do you know what I mean? Like, could we vote on this and still bring that up again, or would that just kind of confuse our messaging?
So technically, yes, we can vote on this today, and then should a majority of the GSA representatives in the open floor comment period vote to hear the statement, we would be able to hear that at the next meeting and subsequently vote on it.
I would like to add something to this.
Yeah.
Another thing that we, as the exec board, decided was, well, for starters, the GSA prefers to be an accessible organization that can communicate and work with the executives of the university. And a statement that ostracizes people would not particularly fit well with our with the way we want to operate. And furthermore, there wasn't a lot of ideas on what we wanted to do in the spring on the other statement. It was mostly about what happened and and how people reacted to it. And we can't cry over spilt milk. And that's why we decided to go with this statement instead of that one.
Tatiana, you had your hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I fully acknowledge the concerns with the other statement. I saw some of the very thorough and well thought out and well worded emails in response to the other statement, and I do think that those that feedback was very warranted. So I do just want to acknowledge that I understand the need to maybe transition to a statement that didn't ostracize, to use the word that was just used a minute ago. But I do also think that Andrew is making a reasonable request because I don't think this is about the content of this new statement, but rather about the process with which this new statement was brought forth. So, and also responding to what Rachel said, I understand that we want to be timely in our response, and so I wonder if we do need time to be able to go through this statement more thoroughly, if maybe we can have a special vote sometime between now and the November meeting. But I do want to just say that I agree with both sides that other statement maybe wasn't the best statement, but I also think the process concern is very valid.
All right, thank you. We have another hand raised from Andrew. Andrew?
Thank you for the discussion about this so far. I just want to say that I found it interesting that if the executive board had problems with the statement, they did not make those known prior to me spending weeks on this statement. And that is a question that I have, and I think it's a real concern for transparency. I also would like to add that had they gone public with the statement that they had been quietly drafting, we could have, instead of having to vote on this and handle this right now, we could have had a discussion involving both statements throughout the course of the last few weeks. And by virtue of the fact that we didn't know about this new statement until they had struck down the one that I had drafted, disallowed any discussion until now about this. And I believe it to be ironic that had we been more transparent about this, we could have worked on this all together and made an even more powerful statement combining the two.
Thank you. Next we have James.
I will say that in the case of transparency, the executive committee was not CC'd on the initial email and the initial discussions until I brought them in with Lexi, first of all. So they were not in the process from the very beginning of the conception, just to clarify.
Sorry, that's really confusing. Aren't you on the GSA representative list?
I am on the GSA representative because I'm a representative, but the executive committee is not on the representative list.
We actually are on the representative list. We did see the notice regarding this statement. And I will clarify that the GSA Executive Board, particularly myself, and I will only speak for myself on this one, I am the chair of this body. I do not get involved in litigating debates or discussions on these issues to maintain some semblance of non-partial, non-biased opinions. So I did not get involved. I would also offer that many of the executive board members stated that the questions and concerns that they had have been previously brought up in the chat by representatives and did not feel that they were adequately addressed in the updates to the statement. James?
I stand corrected. I apologize, Andrew.
Right. And also, I just wanted to add that as the GSA executives, we also don't want anyone to feel like they're not heard. We're still talking about the issue today, and obviously the letter hasn't been banished. We're still discussing it, but I also don't want us to be undermined in the action that we have taken, because Andrew, you may have spent weeks drafting it and then sent it to us, and we all began scrambling at how to tackle the email that you drafted. So everyone pretty much put their projects that we were working on for the student body aside, and we actually did, time and time again, relook over the letter. So I just don't want anyone to underestimate how much we actually did put into this, and we still are putting into it. But it wasn't only our opinions as well. We were consulting with Dr. Harris, with different representatives, emailing privately. So it's not necessarily something that was going to happen overnight and day. We really had to put in some research so that we could properly back you. And me personally, I began to take some of the questions out of the email, and I'm in close contact with Dean Brandon. And so I went on a Zoom call with him and I brought up some of the questions, and he, of course I needed to give him a forewarning, but I said, we have this letter on the table, and I brought forward to him some of the pieces from your letter. And he also said, okay, we need to do research on X, Y, and Z in order to have the best response. So perhaps also at this time, we haven't gathered enough research, each of us individually. So like I said, it hasn't been banished, but we're also thinking how to tackle this and also any future issues that arise like this.
I would like to add to that.
Yeah, Devesh, go ahead.
Like someone pointed out, another concern that we were facing was if we have a letter to the larger NC State executives, it has to be now, not late in November, when the university is actually closed, when most of the decisions are done. So we found it was best to write a letter ourselves because we have to get it out soon. We want grad students to be heard. That's what everyone's concerns are here, right? So unless, we can always, vote on this now and then decide to send it out later, or vote on this a little bit later before the next meeting, but we need to get this out soon, whichever one we're voting on.
Can I add something real quick?
Who is there?
Emily.
Oh, it's me, sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I want to reiterate the point that I think that we really need to focus on looking to the future. I think everyone can agree that what was in the past was a mistake, and that we don't want to repeat of it. And so I think that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to put together a statement that was looking towards the future. And I understand completely, Andrew, why you'd be frustrated with us. We're a little at a loss too, as it is. And I actually made a bunch of notes on your statement. And if you would like to talk with me, I can talk with you about the problems I had, and maybe we can come up with like a secondary statement or something along the lines of that we could get more involved. But I agree with Dev that we really need to get something out right now. But I would definitely be willing to communicate with you and tell you my issues with the statement if that would be something you're interested in.
The next hand raise I see is from Miles Calzini. Miles?
Hi, everyone. So I definitely am sympathetic to and share some of the process concerns that have been brought up so far, as far as the denial of reading of this letter on the floor. But I do want to emphasize that if we vote to table this, we're giving up our voice as graduate students effectively in this process, because decisions were made prior to our next meeting. And so I think it's important that we consider the letter in front of us, vote to send this out, and don't table it, because I want graduate students to have a voice in this process. And I'm concerned that we're giving that up if we vote to table this over process concerns, while they are valid. So I'm strongly in favor of not tabling this motion and improving it, improving the letter and sending it out to the administration. Thank you.
The next one up is Andrew. Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you. To everyone saying that they're willing to work on a statement with me moving forward with this, I think that I'm very much happy to continue this discussion and potentially even draft a different letter. However, I think that we need to have an understanding that what happened was, I am actually very confused why these concerns were not brought up before. I still think that had the executive board wished to work with me in drafting a better statement, they would have reached out to me as one of the people that they reached out to in drafting their statement. And I find it honestly highly insulting that was not the case.
So I'll insert a point of clarification here. We do have a motion on the table to table the reopening statement, and it was seconded. So any conversations should be regarded specifically to the tabling of this document.
Thank you, Emily. That is true. Do we have anything specifically focused on the tabling of this? Any hand raises? Hannah?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo a lot of the things people have said, that I don't think we should table the reopening, that we do need to push forward with this because there's a clock on what we can do for the future. There's no clock on the past. The past has already happened. We can revisit that at any point, but we can't, there is a ticking clock on our ability to affect the future. So I think we need to focus on what we need to take care of now, and the other letter is not going anywhere. The actions of the past are not going anywhere. So we can discuss those in November, but we possibly can't discuss this later.
Dalton?
Yes, thank you. To the issue of whether or not to table this document, I would agree with everything that's been shared so far regarding the timetable and the need to have a graduate student voice put out there. And you cannot decontextualize the conversation about tabling this from the larger issues about the two different statements. And so to that point, I would just like to actually thank Andrew quite a bit for taking the time and putting in all the effort that he has in bringing this whole core issue to the forum that is University GSA. Regardless of how the executive committee decided to handle the forming of this current statement, I think at least part of the spirit of Andrew's original statement is clearly here, in that it's us requesting changes be made to make our situation a lot safer and more comfortable, and hopefully ultimately better as we move into 2021. And, looking at how events have transpired, I also just wanted to say that it might be really easy to look at, what Andrew has done and what he's been pushing for in a sort of negative light. And I would encourage all GSA members to not see it that way, because this is ultimately why we're here. And so again, thank you, Andrew, for bringing this to the forum. And I really hope that the other part of your spirited document, we continue to talk about and debate on its merits and whether or not the general spirit reflects what GSA should and should not say, because these are conversations that are important for the future of our organization, regardless of whether or not we actually move forward with publishing the call for accountability. Thank you.
Tatiana?
Yes, I do not have a, oh, my dog is responding to whoever's dog that is.
That's fine, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, this happens on Zoom all the time. I do not have a comment, I have a question. Frodo, please. About the clock that we keep referring to. Is there a particular date that the university's administration is trying to decide on the plans for next semester as it pertains to COVID, or is this just an implied, we know that the semester is looming and these conversations are happening, or is there a particular date that they have?
I believe that this is in regards to kind of a general looming, but I will defer to Dean Harries if there is a time that the university has a plan for.
No, I mean, there's no set date here, but I mean, I would agree that, you know, if you want to have an influence on what's going to happen in spring, the sooner it gets in front of people who are actually making those decisions, the better.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further debate on the motion, we will vote on the motion. You may vote yes to table this, which means that it will not be voted on tonight, or vote no, which would not table it, and we will continue to vote on it tonight. I'm going to give this another 15, 20 seconds. Okay, with 8 in the affirmative, 34 in the negative, this motion is not tabled. So we will continue on a vote for this measure tonight. I will now open up the floor for any additional comments, questions, or concerns. Seeing no additional comments, questions, or concerns, I would look favorably upon a motion to vote on the statement or move the previous question.
I move to call for the previous question.
Oh, one sec. Before we go forward, I would like to say one more thing.
Of course.
We would also, I want to reflect on what Dalton said, and also thank Andrew for bringing up the idea of writing a statement for bringing grad students' voices out to this, because well, if it wasn't for him, this wouldn't have been brought up. So thanks again, Andrew. But yeah.
Hello, all. So I believe we had a motion for the previous question. Do I see a second?
Second.
Okay, with a motion and a proper second, did people raise their hands? Oh, we did have seconds. All right. Please vote in the participants tab. You may vote yes or no on the statement.
Sorry, for the minutes, can we confirm who made the motion, who seconded?
I believe you made the motion. for the previous
Oh.
question, and Miles seconded. I believe. I could be incorrect though. Please someone correct me if I'm wrong.
I know I also did, so I don't know if there were multiple people at the same time. Alexandra Enriquez.
I think you might have done it then.
Okay.
So, sorry, it was Alexandria?
Yeah, Alexandria.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So just to clarify, this is a motion to either say, yes, we want to like pass this and send this to administration, or vote no, we do not want to send this to administration. To give some clarity to what we're voting on right now. I know that this legislative process is very confusing if you're not used to it, so I appreciate everyone coming through this with me. Lord knows I'm not used to shepherding people through this process, so it's harder than I thought it was. I'll have to give Coleman his props. Okay, I'm gonna close the voting in 10 seconds. All righty, with 46 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, we do have, this statement does pass. So thank you all so much for voting. I'm excited to share this with Chancellor Woodson and Provost Arden. I'm sure that they will be excited about this as well. We now move on to the next statement that we have up for a vote tonight. I don't believe that this one will be nearly as contentious, so, but please let me know if you disagree. This is a statement that was put together with some really important feedback by Beth, as we mentioned earlier in this meeting tonight. She really helped guide this statement, which basically says that, and I'm going to use the words that I couldn't find a better one for earlier, that this rule change is stupid, that it's unfair to our international graduate students, and that it's going to create a ton of unnecessary chaos. I will now open the floor for any questions about the statement. Do we have any questions? John, I have a quick question actually. What is this and?
I think that's, yeah, I just saw that. I don't know. Sorry. I think I accidentally.
Okay. I'm
Sorry.
just gonna delete that. Okay. Do we have any questions from anyone about the statement? I think it's pretty straightforward, but feel free to.
I move to vote on the statement.
Who made that motion? I'm sorry.
Anna.
Anna. Awesome. Do we have a second on the motion?
I second it.
We got a lot of seconds on that. Okay.
I'll write that in a minute. Second by a lot of people.
Yes. Okay. So you may either vote yes, which would send the statement forward, and we will hopefully be able to submit it before the 11:59 p.m. deadline, or you may vote no, and it will not go forward, and we will not send this off to Sharon. Voting will stay open for another 10 seconds. With 46 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, this motion does pass and will be sent off to Sharon over in ICE to tell them why they're doing their jobs incorrectly. We now return to the main new business where we have nominations for president-elect. Would anyone like to nominate someone or nominate themselves for the role of president-elect? Very briefly, this role would be, you get to hang out with me a lot. You get to shadow, you get to understand what the role of president is, and you would be elected in for the 2021-2022 term as president of the Graduate Student Association. I see a hand raise from Miles. Miles, would you like to nominate?
I would like to nominate myself.
Would anyone like to second the nomination?
I'll second the nomination.
Awesome. Miles, yes, okay. Congratulations, Miles. Your nomination has been seconded. We'll talk later about what that's gonna mean. Would anyone else like to nominate themselves or someone else? Miles, are you still raising your hand?
No, sorry.
That's okay.
I nominate Devesh.
We have a nomination for Devesh. Devesh, sorry, do we have a second for the nomination?
Second.
Devesh, do you accept this nomination?
I do, thank you.
All right, Devesh, congratulations. You've also been nominated. Are there any other nominations for the role at this time? I'm gonna pause just for another second. Are there any other nominations? Are we going to receive bios and policy statements? Yes, we will be receiving bios from everybody, and we will be able to do like a Q&A with our candidates next meeting. So that will be for the November meeting, and then we will move forward into election after that. So that'll be fun. We will also be doing an open call for nominations. So if you know someone that you think might be interested, if you think someone might be good at this, please go ahead. We will be sending that out shortly. So let us know. With that, I would look favorably on a motion to close the period of nominations.
I'd like to make said motion.
Awesome. Do we have a second?
Second.
All righty, and I'm gonna do a vote of consent, which means if you disagree, you may vote no. Otherwise, I'm just gonna assume that this is a yes. All righty, seeing only a yes vote, thank you. We are going to move forward into the open floor period. Do I see any comments for open floor at this time?
I would still like to motion to have a reading of my statement to call for accountability.
Okay, so now that that motion has been made in open floor, we may vote on that motion. First, are there any questions about what that means? Okay. Seeing no questions.
I'm sorry, Lindsay. I don't know if I'm the only one, but maybe just a very quick recap of what reading means. Time period, expectations for review from representatives, things like that.
So what this would mean is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, about what your motion is. You're motioning to have a vote on this now, correct?
I'm motioning to vote on this in the next meeting.
Okay, so what that would mean is that this statement would be voted on at the next meeting, which would override the executive board's decision to not hear this statement. What that would mean is that at the next GSA meeting, given, time for more discussion with everybody, we would have this vote at the November 2020 meeting. Does that clarify what this would mean?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Are there any comments, questions, etc. regarding this motion? Seeing no comments, I would look favorably on a motion to move the previous question.
Move the previous question.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All righty, and so we will move into a vote now. If you vote yes, we will be voting to vote on, yes, the statement, a call for accountability at the November 2020 meeting. If you vote no, that means you do not want to move forward with a vote on that statement, and that we will not hear that at the November 2020 meeting.
Question. Sorry. Is this discarding the letter that the executive committee put together?
No, so the statement, spring 2021 reopening statement passed tonight. Right. So that will be moving forward regardless of how you vote right now.
Okay, thank you.
James, you also have a question?
Which version of the letter are we? So if we vote to pass it next meeting, which version are we going to be voting on? Are there going to be changes, or are we voting for the reading of the current version?
I will defer to Andrew for that, if he would like to.
I am willing to change the document in the meantime if that is something that we can do, but I do think that we should bring this to the floor, and that's why I want it read right now.
Are there any additional questions? James, do you still, okay. So I will leave voting open on this measure for another, so essentially determine if we should look at it in November. Yes, that is exactly what this motion is, Hannah. So I'm gonna put this in the chat is yes. Does that clarify for everybody? That's what these votes are saying.
Was there a second on this motion?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
I don't remember who. I'm going to be honest with you.
That was me.
Who is me? There we go. Thank you. It doesn't always pop up on my screen, and I'm like, I don't know who's talking right now. I'm so sorry, guys. Are there any other questions?
I just want to verify, if we read this tonight and we vote on bringing this up in November, like changes can be made to the document between now and then.
Yes, we can't. Changes may continue to be made to the document as we've seen until they are voted yes on.
Okay, thank you.
At which point in time you may not change it anymore. That's it. That's final. That's done.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'd like to ask people to please vote. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Please, please, please vote. I'm going to give this another 10 seconds, at which point I will call it. Okay. With 18 in the affirmative, 24 in the negative, this motion does not carry. And we will not be hearing this. This will not be up for a vote at the next GSA meeting. Do we have any additional open floor comments at this time? I see a hand raise. Hua, I'm sorry if I totally butchered your name.
You spoke my name perfectly. No, thank you for being mindful about name pronunciation. You had no idea how many people don't really care about that. But hi, Hua, I'm first year PhD in the MEAS program, and this is actually my first time being in a GSA meeting. So it it was pretty great to get to see everyone in action. So thanks for all the work you do. I'm here today because I know you're all busy with a lot of issues going on, especially this ongoing problem with how we're gonna resume school in the spring semester, still kind of in limbo, it seems like. But there's something else I'd like to bring to your attention. I know just as we have put our energy in making sure that the school is going to work for the students, and also investing energy in things on a national scale. I would like to mention this specific local issue that I think is going to be important and it's going to impact our livelihood in the few years to come in the city of Raleigh. So during this early voting period, the city of Raleigh is reviewing this proposal by King Realty to basically upzone 135 acres of land in downtown. And this has gotten a lot of attention from a lot of local environmental and community organizations in Raleigh, particularly because just like determined to ram through a project without community engagement, and also how the development is going to impact runoffs with impervious surfaces that's going to affect communities downstream, and that's going to hit places that's essentially known to be historically Black communities, such as the Rochester's Heights and other neighborhood in Walnut Creek. And I feel that, so I went to this, I know about this from this webinar hosted by Partners of Environmental Justice, who have been paying attention to what's going on this past couple weeks with this particular proposal with the city. And they have a letter template that they want to send and share with everyone to send to the city council and the planning commissions. And I thought to myself, wait, why don't I share this with see if we can get a student body to also send letters. So I was just wondering if the GSA would be willing to, if I had the letter template, if the Partners of Environmental Justice had the letter template, would the GSA be willing to share the letter to the student body to have people start sending letters to the city and planning commission in at least the next couple of days, because they're not giving us a lot of time to work on this. They should, but they're not. But yeah, that's my take.
Okay, so what I'm getting is just sharing the letter with people to be able to sign on to.
There'll be a letter template that all you gotta do is put in your name. It's already listed all of the concerns and demands made by Partners of Environmental Justice and also One Wake, and just put in your name, copy, paste to two email, one email sent to the city council, another email sent to the planning commission, and yeah, that's like, I guess, a 2-minute job.
Well, the GSA sends out a regular email update, and we're, I assume, happy to send that out as well.
Thanks. If there's a way to share that somehow, that would be great.
Dr. Harries, I see you unmuted. Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I would just, I mean, what I would actually suggest is that rather than having a bunch of people send exactly the same email, that either you get all the names together. I think it's much more powerful to have a list of names. If everyone's going to be sending exactly the same message and they're getting hundreds of them, it looks like spam. So, I mean, I would just be careful about, what is the best way to actually communicate your concerns and not necessarily, make people disregard your points because they've gotten the same email hundreds of times.
Well, I guess I could turn the letter template into a sign-on letter, and it'll be on Google Doc basically. So I could just ask people to put their name underneath. Probably be easier that way. But given that they're gonna have the hearing on Thursday, I'll have to.
Yeah, that's not a lot of time.
Not a lot of time.
Well, why don't you send this? Why don't we chat more offline about how best you want to do this, and
Sure.
I can send this out to the GSA reps listserv for further distribution.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks.
We have another statement from Tatiana. Tatiana?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak in support of what Hua just said. I've been following this issue closely, and I think it's a really important issue. And just given that the GSA has been involved with other issues in particular, I mean, we just sent out a statement in regard to the nomination of the Supreme Court Justice and seem to be very social justice minded. And this is a social justice issue that's really hitting very close to campus. I think this is definitely something that I would like to see folks from this group in support of. And I do just want to say, nonprofits in general, it's pretty common to do these kind of mass campaigns where you have like a sign-on letter and, you know, it sends it out because it lets the elected officials know that a lot of their constituents are really concerned about these issues. So I will say it's a pretty common thing, and I think it's very easy for us to do. And even in addition to those templates that Hua is mentioning, an organization called Livable Raleigh just made those even easier. I saw tonight that they sent out an email where all you have to do is click the button and it auto-populates the email into your thing, and then you just have to hit the send button. So they've made it even easier to participate. So I just want to voice my strong support of of what Hua has just brought to the floor.
Awesome. We do love social justice here at GSA. That's for sure. So thank you, Tatiana. Are there any other comments at this time? I will make a quick comment, and if I hadn't iterated this strongly enough in my update, please go vote. If you haven't already, I'm begging you to all go vote. Your votes matter, especially in the great state of North Carolina, so go vote. With that, I would look favorably on a motion to end this meeting.
So moved.
See motion. Do we have
Second.
excellent. And with that, please do a yes or no vote, and then we can all go home. Oh, I see a hand raised from David.
I had a brief question. I have not received an email regarding a committee assignment this month. I've sent out a couple of emails regarding that, but I haven't heard anything back from any committees about the committee assignment for this year.
David, why don't you email me and I will get back to you with that.
All right.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
So yes, we were in the middle of a vote. Please vote yes or no if you would like to leave. Fantastic. With 37 in the affirmative, we do meet the majority, and you can all go home or sign off of this meeting and do whatever you were planning on doing for the rest of your night. Thank you all so much for a wonderful and rousing meeting. I look forward to many more discussions and exciting stuff. Have a great rest of your night and enjoy your week. May you all